Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Bacon Bears. Today is Wednesday, or no, I'm sorry. Today is Tuesday, the 14th of October, and we're here for our Monday scheduled lives. Usually we're here on Mondays, but you know, scheduling and kids and school being out and whatever. So, how is everybody? I hope you guys are good. Mr. Pike, I see you. I see you. Here you are. And I hope everyone is doing well. What I want to discuss today is Ellen Greenberg. So if you guys haven't seen my coverage on Ellen Greenberg, it was a case that I did last week. And hi, Chad, how are you? It was a case that I did last week. It is one that is very sad. It is one that's very frustrating. This was a woman who was stabbed to death 20 different times. And her case has been ruled a suicide. And, you know, there's a lot of people that don't agree with that, including the medical examiner who first looked at her case. And a lot of things have been changed for one reason or another, and we don't know why that is. And so her parents, I'm doing well. So her parents were fighting for Philadelphia, and they wanted to get the case reopened so that way, you know, I mean, at least the three ways that they could rule a death is homicide, suicide, or undetermined. And, you know, I think in a case like this, the least that they could have done is undetermined. So what we're going to do is we're going to read the article about her again today. If you guys want to go in depth about it, I have a long form video. I'll try to link it below this, or it's just Ellen Greenberg. It's on my front page. That's the one that we covered last week. But, you know, it's just very frustrating because these cops came in, they saw her, they took her fiance's word for it. They, you know, didn't do any investigative work. They just said, oh, suicide, open and shut case. They didn't realize that she had wounds to the back of the neck, to her back, to her spine. They didn't realize that she had a gash to her head. And there's a lot of frustrating things in this People People article that I want to go over. I think that's all I have to say about this. If you guys have any thoughts, wow, thank you for the super chat. Ask my husband, but thank you for the super chat. We appreciate. Hi, Lucia. How are you? Hi. I'm doing good. How are you? Yes, Baconator. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Yes, I've been waiting for you guys to get here so we can go over this article. And that's what we're going to do right now. So I have the article right here. It's Ellen Greenberg's controversial death, again, ruled a suicide. $2 to ask that. I appreciate it. Listen, if you're going to troll me, at least pay me. That's all I have to ask. Oh my God, my sister's calling. Hold on a second. Yes, I'm on stream. You can go in the stream. Okay, love you, bye. The trolls are here early this morning. Mission failed. Absolutely. Well, you know what? I mean, mission not failed. I got $2. So there is that. I was waiting to see. Yeah, talk to my husband about it. He'd be happy to tell you. So, okay. So at first, her death was ruled a suicide by police. Then she went and got her autopsy. Then it was ruled a homicide. Then they have this secret meeting, and then it's ruled a suicide again. Then her parents decide to fight Philadelphia, and then it's ruled a suicide. And then it was ruled a suicide again. I don't mean to laugh because what we're talking about is very serious, but this comment, you got $2 and he didn't even get an answer, makes me laugh. Anyways, Ellen Greenberg's controversial death again ruled a suicide by medical examiner. The Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office reviewed Greenberg's 2011 manner of death and determined that it should remain a suicide, even though her family and friends believe that she was murdered. It's not only her family and friends. It really isn't. So, you know, everybody is pretty much on the same page. A lot of people think that Sam, her fiance, who was there at the time, had something to do with it. I don't know if I believe that. I don't think that there's enough evidence to show that he was or wasn't, especially because they cleaned up the crime scene at the time. However, does that mean that somebody else couldn't have been capable of doing this to her? No, somebody could have. For years, Ellen Greenberg's parents and Josh and Sandy Greenberg have sought answers about their daughter's death in 2011. Love the channel and what you're doing. Thank you so much. In February, they settled lawsuits. Let me see if I can fix this real quick. I'm sorry. Also, I don't know why my microphone is clipping. I don't know if you guys hear that, but I definitely hear that. So, in February of 2025, they settled lawsuits with the city of Philadelphia and others, asking the city to reevaluate their daughter's manner of death, which they believe should be changed to homicide or undetermined. And that's the thing. They're not going after anybody for money. They're just going after these people to make sure that she gets the investigation that she deserves. And I think that's what's important. She should get the investigation that she deserves, and they should get the investigation that they deserve so that they could have the proper closure on what happened to their daughter. She will be back. She will be back. I promise. I promise. Hi, Grace. How are you? Oh, Grace, I wanted to tell you, I have reached out to Ask a Mortician on Instagram. I don't know if she'll see it, if it'll go into her junk, but I tried, and we'll see if she gets back. I told her that I would be very interested in hearing on what her take is on this particular case. I'm very interested in that. As far as Lauren the Mortician goes, I was actually a big fan of hers. And then there was a lot of things that she did over on TikTok that I'm not a big fan of. So that's not somebody that I'll reach out to. But Ask a Mortician, I had looked at some of her stuff on YouTube and Instagram, and you're right, she's wonderful. So I did reach out to her. So we'll see. Jumping Fox in the chat. Hello. So, if you guys want to know why Jumping Fox in the chat always gets applause, it's because when she comes, she brings the clap. That's why. So, anyways, the chief medical examiner issued a 32-page review saying she will keep Greenberg's manner of death as a suicide. I don't know if we have access to that review. I would like to see it. I would definitely like to talk about it and review it, but I don't know if we would have access to that. The Philadelphia Medical Examiner Office has reviewed Ellen Greenberg's 2011 death and concluded again that she indeed died by suicide. The long-awaited determination comes before a hearing scheduled for Tuesday, October 14th, which is today, before Philadelphia Common Pleas Court Judge Linda Carpenter, who previously expressed her frustration at the length of time the re-examination was taking. So, hi only. So, yeah. Wait a minute. Don't just roll past what you said. Roll past what I said? I never thought I'd enjoy the clap, and then Jumping Fox started showing up. Exactly. She's wonderful. So that's the other thing is, hi, Jess, how are you? So all they were asking was to get somebody to look at this case and to reevaluate it. And then the city was still taking their time. And one thing that I think it's important, one thing that's important is to remember that now I forgot my train of thought. You guys made me lose my train of thought. What were we talking about? Oh, one of the things that's important to remember is that this family went up against the city of Philadelphia and they really wanted their answers. And then they got down to the point where it was going to need to be discovery time. And if you guys don't know, in a legal case, discovery is the most important. It's when you bring all of the evidence, all of it pertaining to this case, all of it that is important to this case. And then they were like, oh, no, wait. No, we'll just give you what you want. We don't want to go through discovery because discovery would show that they were completely incompetent, in my humble opinion. So instead, they got a medical examiner, which this medical examiner is supposed to be independent, but do I believe it? You know, I don't know. Was it ever confirmed that the latch on the door, or if the latch was on the door, or that it was broken off when he broke the door down? It's a he said situation. There was nobody there to witness it. There was nobody there to identify it. And they took everything that he said at face value. One of the things that I want to do research on today is if they had an interview with him other than the statement that they took that day. Has Sam ever seen the inside of an interrogation room? Because I think that's important. On January 26th of 2011, Greenberg, 27, was found dead inside her Philadelphia apartment by her fiancé, Sam Goldberg, during a blizzard. Autopsy results showed that she had been stabbed 20 times, including in the back of the neck, back, head, and heart, and had 11 bruises all over her body in various stages of healing. The knife was found protruding from her chest. Now, my first thought was that she couldn't do this because she couldn't, with the length of the knife, she couldn't get to the back of her head. But one of our followers, or one of our mods actually, El Jakad, brought up a really great point. The physical exertion that it takes to stab someone, let alone 20 times, is exhausting. And then to do that on yourself, how is it possible? Now, there is a case that we cover in the long form video where a man has stabbed himself in the neck 19 times. And the only reason that they found out that he did it was because there was surveillance footage. But in this case, I don't personally believe that that's the case. I don't. Autopsy results. Okay, so we have that. Then assistant medical examiner, Dr. Marlon Osborne, ruled her death a homicide. So he even looked at her body the first time and was like, something's not right. This is indeed a homicide. I mean, how do you look at this? Even in the other case where the man was stabbed 19 times and he did it to himself, they still treated it like a homicide until they were proven wrong, which is what should have happened in this case. You have a victim who has been brutally attacked, and you have to rule it either a homicide or undetermined. To just open and shut with a suicide, in my opinion, is absolutely ludicrous. Weeks later, he changed Greenberg's manner of death to suicide after meeting with the Philadelphia Police Department, preventing any criminal investigation to identify her possible killer. And what we know about that meeting behind closed doors is that there were no notes. There was no recording of it. There was nothing. There was nothing. And if I could find, actually, let me see if I could find his interview. Because all he keeps saying is, when I was watching the documentary, the only thing that he kept saying was, I don't have notes for that meeting. And Joe Pedraza, the Greenberg's lawyer, kept saying, Why? Why don't you have notes for that meeting? It's a professional meeting. It's a meeting that you would record something about it. And all he kept saying was, I don't have any notes for that meeting. I don't have any notes for that meeting. I don't have any notes for that meeting. That doesn't answer the question. Why in this particular meeting did you not record anything that you should have recorded? Osborne, Philadelphia. So let's see if we have any videos from him. I want to see him directly. Let's see. Deposition, maybe. Oh, wait. They have his deposition transcript? We can go through that next. Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, that'll be a good one. Yep. All right. So we have that. Okay. Let's go back to the article first. There is definitely something that you are in a meeting, in a professional environment, and you're in a meeting with police, you're in a meeting with the coroner, all of these things. You would think that he would take some sort of recording, any sort of recording. Let's see. Goldberg, her fiance, so Sam Goldberg, her fiance, was never a suspect. What is this? Go away. He was never a suspect and has never been charged with any crime. He did not respond to people's requests to comment. And that's fine if he's not a suspect and he's never been charged with a crime. That also doesn't mean that somebody else couldn't have done this to her. Also, it's important to note that Sam Goldberg's uncle, the day after that she was found murdered, Sam Goldberg's uncle went into their apartment and retrieved Ellen's laptop and her phone and took it. And then when it was ruled a homicide is when he handed that over to the police. Is this substantial evidence or grasping for straws? And that's the thing. That's the biggest question about this case is any substantial evidence has been wiped away. They came in and they had the apartment. They ruled it a homicide and they ruled it a suicide I'm sorry. I'm misspeaking. They came in, they ruled it a suicide. And then the next day they had the apartment completely cleaned. So we wouldn't know if they had any real substantial evidence because they had the entire scene wiped. For the past 14 years, Greenberg's parents, Sandy and Josh Greenberg, sought to find answers about their daughter's death. They hired renowned experts, including forensic pathologist Dr. Cyril Wecht, who concluded that Ellen's wounds were not self-inflicted, and forensic neuropathologist Dr. Wayne Ross, who found evidence of strangulation and believes Ellen's death was staged. The other thing is when you take a look at the size of this knife, I mean, the length of the knife is extremely long. So to think about her getting stabbed straight into the back of the neck, how far back her hand has to go. I mean, is she double jointed? I can't get past his 911 call, just odd, even considering shock. If we have the time, that's something we could go through today. Was that good on the uncle's part, holding it till the homicide ruling so the laptop and phone were safe? Well, my issue with that is it was Sam's uncle who was holding on to it. Why did he come in saying to the manager of the apartment building that he needed to gather some things for the funeral and only takes out her laptop and her phone? As far as I could find, he didn't retrieve anything of Sam's. And what do you need a laptop and a phone for the funeral? I don't know. The couple gathered more than 167,000 signatures asking the city to reopen the case. They also filed 2 lawsuits, one in 2019 against the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office and Osborne, and another in 2022 against the city of Philadelphia, former Chief Medical Examiner Sam Galino and others, alleging that the investigation was so deeply botched, it amounted to a cover-up, according to their attorney, Joe Pedraza. Could it be a cover-up? I don't know. Do I think that they didn't even do the bare minimum of what they needed to do within their jobs to get this girl some justice? Absolutely. Absolutely. On February 3rd, the Greenbergs settled lawsuits that they had filed against the city of Philadelphia, former Chief Medical Examiner Sam Galino and others, which included a monetary payment of city officials agreeing to reevaluate Greenberg's manner of death. And this only came after they got down to discovery and they were like, fine, show us everything. Show us everything then. Or contacting everyone to let them know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like the fact that it was his uncle taking her stuff out of the apartment. There's something about that. He's also a very prominent lawyer in Philly. That might be a tidbit that we should know. So, in the meantime, Dr. Osborne signed a statement attesting he no longer believes that Ellen died by suicide. So Dr. Osborne, the medical examiner who originally ruled her death a homicide, then has a closed-door meeting, then rules her death a suicide, now states, currently, he no longer believes that she died by suicide. In the call, doesn't he say she has a shirt, jacket zipped up and only sees the knife after he unzips it? So there's a lot in that. And I don't feel comfortable putting her crime scene photos on screen. I find it to be disrespectful to her. You guys can go find him if you want, but I saw him in the documentary and a couple of different things. Number one, the 911 operator said that, we need to do CPR. And he goes, oh, I guess, or he says, he's going to say, I guess. And then he says, I have to, right? But she's never laid down. She's always sitting up. She's not sitting up, but she's like slumped up against the cabinets, which tells me that he never did CPR. And then he's fumbling with her zipper because she had like a zipped hoodie on, and he's fumbling with the zipper. But if you see the pictures, hold on. If you see the pictures of her body, the zipper is here, the knife is right here. And he's trying to get it, and he's like, oh, the zipper is stuck. How do you miss that? I don't know. I don't know. Could it be possible that he's in such shock that he completely missed the whole thing? Possibly. Possibly. Farkle Beans. Hi. I've missed you, Farkle. Yeah, it doesn't seem to add up. It doesn't. Thank you, Johnny. Oop. Thank you, Johnny. I'm a lucky girl. My husband is wonderful. All right. The Greenbergs' pursuit of answers about their daughter's death was recently portrayed in a 3-part docuseries, Death in Apartment 603, What Happened to Ellen Greenberg, from ABC News Studios. If you guys get a chance, if you have Hulu, I would watch it. I would really watch it. Are they reopening her case? No, they are not. They have ruled it a suicide again. In my opinion, somebody knows somebody. But what do I know? The docuseries features interviews with Greenberg's closest friends, as well as experts who detail why they believe that she was murdered. One expert suggested that some of her wounds were inflicted, in fact, after she died. And the other thing is, too, is they want to say a lot about Sam Greenberg in the documentary. There's nothing in the documentary that tells me he had something to do with this. And I think you need to look at it from the standard of the law. Like if you were a juror and you were to put him on trial, is there anything to say that he had anything to do with this? And the answer is absolutely no. Do I think that he could have had something to do with this? Sure. Hi, what's up? Do I think somebody else could have had something to do with this? Absolutely. This was an apartment building. 800 people live here. You have other people, other residents. You have maintenance workers. You have security. Nobody was necessarily in and out of the building because it was a blizzard. But could somebody know Sam's routine or watched from that floor? Sam goes down to the gym and they sneak into the apartment or they break into the apartment. Hi, Miranda. In the end, Philadelphia Chief Medical Examiner Lindy Simon disagrees. On October 10th of 2025, in a 32-page review obtained by People, Simon writes that the Emmys office was asked to conduct an independent and unbiased review of all available materials relating to the death of Ellen Greenberg. Which, do we have access to that? Is this the topic? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Now, what I want to, let's see. Ellen Greenberg 32-page report. Let's see if we have access to that. She lists what that was. Open link in new tab. God damn it, I love Reddit. So Reddit goes in and like buys this stuff so we don't have to. So great. So great. And then we can have the original copies. So we'll get to that too. Wasn't there a video that only showed him going near the apartment? No. So he was near the apartment, but he was also going to the gym, he was at the apartment the whole time. So he was at the apartment with her. He claimed that she was alive when he went down to the first floor to go to the gym, and then he went back up, and then, yeah. And then he was in the apartment. Simon said she reviewed extensive records, including reports from Wecht, Ross, and Thomas Brennan, the private investigator hired by the Greenbergs and the documentary. In her final analysis, Simon writes that while the distribution of injuries is admittedly unusual, the fact remains that Ellen would be capable of inflicting these injuries herself, noting that she was a young woman suffering from anxiety. Now, let me ask you this. I am fully capable of taking a pew-pew to my own head. Does that not mean that somebody else could also be capable of doing this? Nobody's saying that she wasn't capable. Well, I'm saying she wasn't capable because I don't fucking buy it. But nobody's really saying that she wasn't capable of doing this. What we're saying is you didn't even investigate to see if there were alternative possibilities. And that's the problem. If there are the possibilities that somebody else could have done this, I mean, why not just rule it undetermined? Actually, Reddit scares the shit out of me, honestly. What a moment to jump on the stream. I know. But welcome in. We're happy to have you. And also, a young woman suffering from anxiety. She was a young woman suffering from anxiety, which means she took a knife and stabbed herself 20 times, including 10 times to the back of the neck and the back of the head. Okay. Simon writes that the fiance's DNA was not detected on the knife used to inflict the injuries. and there was no evidence of an abusive relationship between them. Okay. So we rule him out then as a suspect. Is it possible that somebody else could have committed the crime? I feel like I'm dealing with fucking morons. And you know what? And that's the thing. That's what I would love to ask Miss Simon, Miss Lindsay Simon, because please, she was capable. They're admittedly unusual, but she is capable of inflicting these injuries herself. Sure. Is it possible that somebody else could have done it? The answer is yes. Her fiance's DNA was not detected on the knife. Okay. This has less to do with Sam. Justify their determination. Exactly. I have anxiety. It means I can't make a phone call without hyping myself up. Not that I'm going to self-exit. Right. My doctor says that anxiety is causing my diarrhea. Honestly, same. Same. I get nervous poops. It'll happen. A contortionist. Right. Could not have done that. Right. Exactly. There's no definite answers. It's also possible that Sam could have thrown away the knife he used a glove to stage the body. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, and I think that's the problem. The problem is that there's so many possibilities that at the very minimum, this should have been undetermined. I agree with this. I don't think that she could have, with the length of that knife, I don't think she could have done that. And that meant she ended here. So she started here? How does that make sense? Also, in my opinion, since we're just, throwing opinions out here, if she were to take a knife as a woman, do you think that stabbing would have been her first route to go? Perhaps cutting would have been the route that she would have taken, not stabbing. Read the comment above could. A contortionist? The lack of DNA on the knife in her chest doesn't mean that was the only knife used. I believe all the knives were accounted for, except for the one that was used, which was the one that she still had in her chest. There were no findings of a struggle found at the scene. Could it be that Ellen Greenberg was tiny and the first injury that she sustained was a blow to her head, completely knocking her out? No infantry. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking. I don't see it. Sure. I agree with that too. If you stab someone, normally the attacker has cut wounds on his hands because the knife gets slippery. The other thing that she did not have was any defensive wounds. But she had a gash to the back of her head. Is it possible that somebody knocked her out, came in? Maybe it was somebody she knew. Maybe it was a neighbor. How deep was the head wound? That I don't know. We'll find that out because we have the autopsy report. Thank you. Why would she choose to do it halfway through making herself a fruit salad? I mean, the only thing that they're going to say is that you're not thinking in a rational, logical frame of mind, which I agree. A lot of people A lot of times when people do self-exit, sometimes it's a long, drawn-out process. They come up with a plan. And sometimes it's like, it's now. So, I mean, I don't know. That's the other thing. I don't know. I don't know. For some reason, I'm not seeing the comment, Miranda, that you're talking about. Right. So you're talking about 20 stab wounds. So she would have to sustain 10 of them to give herself 10 more. I was a homicide investigator. Charlie, I would love to talk to you. Please. Retired now. This case has a lot of open questions. These questions are the wrong ones. Well, tell me the right ones to ask. That's what we do here. We love to, it's bullshit. We love to educate. What are the right questions that we should be asking? With all this information considered, it is the opinion of the undersigned that the manner of Ellen Greenberg's death is best classified as a suicide. No, it says it's bullshit. Is that? No? I don't know. Grace, I don't know if you want me to highlight this comment or not. But first of all, glad you didn't. So glad. Glad to have you. But yeah, sometimes it is very planned. I know of a case, somebody personal to me had somebody who they knew that took their own life, and they told me the story, and it was a full notebook of how they were going to do it. And, sometimes it happens that way. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's very quick. It depends on the person, I think. All opinions stated in this report are expressed with a reasonable degree of medical certainty. The report is deeply flawed, Pedraza, who is their lawyer, tells People. It builds a flimsy case on the distorted portrayal of Ellen's mental health and ignores key evidence that contradicts suicide. These contradictions and other unanswered questions surrounding Ellen's death require a deeper look, which MEO Simon simply ignores and now has permanently foreclosed. The city of Philadelphia and the medical examiner did not immediately respond to People's request for comment. Oh yeah, if for some reason it's wiping that comment. But no, I don't think it's physically possible either. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with the comments, guys. I'm sorry. I have no control. All right, well, let's look at this. This is the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania. And this is Dr. Osborne's deposition. The next morning, January 27th of 2011, Dr. Osborne, then an assistant medical examiner, performed an autopsy on the victim's body. Dr. Osborne was briefed on the details of the scene by Stephen Olszewski, an investigator with the MEO's office, who investigated the scene approximately 2 hours after the victim's body was found. Upon his arrival in the victim's apartment, Mr. O found her lifeless body slouched over in a seated position on the kitchen floor. Yes, the training. Let's say my training enables me firsthand to confirm that her doing those to her neck from behind is impossible. And let's say she got one. She's able to keep going to sustain 10 of them. So here we are. Her body was found slouched over in a seated position on the kitchen floor. How are you going to do CPR if she was in a seated position? This couldn't have been by her hand. Mr. O, let's see, a kitchen knife was lodged in her chest. Numerous other stab wounds had been inflicted in her chest through the zippered shirt and T-shirt that she was wearing. Strewn across the countertop and sink were several other kitchen knives and an overturned knife block and a half-made fruit salad. And that's the thing. I mean, I guess she could have taken it out, and so there's no sign of a struggle, but you have the knife that's overturned. What is a sign of a struggle? Also, can somebody be killed with no sign of a struggle because they're knocked out? Did she have rigor mortis? That I don't know. Thank you, Megan. Inside a bedroom drawer, Mr. O recovered the victim's prescription drugs, which includes 2 types of anti-anxiety medication and a sleep aid, which to me is so. There's a lot of people on anti-anxiety meds and sleep aids. In my 20 years, I've never seen anyone in the seated position. You cannot stay there due to upper body weight. Unless someone placed her in that position, the body tends to move to self-preserve. So you know what else is interesting about that, Charlie, is that the private investigator that they had hired to bring onto this case had said that with the way that she was, you would have expected blood to go from top to bottom of her face. But it was going from ear to cheek this way instead of this way. I think I have that right. But he had said that it seemed very likely that the body was moved. Just need plain O2 to function. Interesting. The medication had been prescribed by Dr. Ellen Berman, a psychiatrist who saw the patient on 3 occasions in the 2 weeks preceding her death. Mr. O spoke by telephone with Mrs. Greenberg, who recalled having a pleasant conversation with the victim earlier that morning while both women were on the way to work. To account for the last hours of the victim's life and the circumstances in which her body was discovered, Mr. O relayed to Dr. Osborne information that Mr. Goldberg had given to PPD officers. Mr. Goldberg, this is Sam. So Sam Goldberg told the officers who responded to the 911 call that he had left the couple's 6th floor apartment to visit their building's gym at approximately 4:45. Approximately 45 minutes later, Sam Goldberg said he returned to the 6th floor but found the apartment door swing bar locked, engaged from the inside. Right. Cheek to ear. We're discussing the Ellen Greenberg case. Another unique request. They all are. The damage to the nerves would also inhibit a lot of movement, so the neck wounds would likely have damage to the cord too much to move. So here's the other thing as well. They talked about how far the knife went in and if she could have been paralyzed because she hit her spinal cord, or because her spinal cord was hit. It's strange. I think they closed the case way too soon. Absolutely. No, they can't. They're incapable of it. They're absolutely incapable of it, Chad. Mr. Goldberg, Sam Goldberg, explained he returned to the building lobby to try to reach the victim via cell phone calls and text messages when approximately 1 hour had passed without a response. Mr. Goldberg said he decided to enter the apartment by force. Now, what we do know in that time, before he went and did this, what we do know in that time is that he did go downstairs and he did ask the gentleman at the front desk to help him get into his apartment. And that gentleman, the concierge, declined because he could not leave his post. How long was the investigation? From what I could find, they were in the apartment less than 3 hours. As a supervisor, I would have had way too many questions before it went to a grand jury or arrest warrant signed. They were in there for less than 3 hours. and then they had it cleaned by a professional crime scene cleanup crew the very next day. The way the vertebrae are shaped, a pointy object absolutely will slide through the cord when puncturing force is used. And that's one of the things that they talked about. Could she have been paralyzed from that? 3 hours sure was fast, wasn't it? Wasn't it? Yeah. So anyways, he goes downstairs. He asks the concierge if the concierge will go upstairs with him. Everybody denies because they can't. You know what? That's a great point. I also thought about that. Don't killers often lure other people to crime scenes to find the victim? And nobody would go with him, so he had to do it himself. Maybe. Allegedly. I don't know. I don't know if I believe. Listen. What is that? What is it called? Occam's razor, right? When it's the most likely scenario. In this case, it's the most likely scenario that Sam had done this. And, but we don't know if he did it. And I'm a big fan of, acting as I would if I were a juror. Innocent until proven guilty. So prove it. Sam is innocent until proven guilty. So prove it, but you can't because you've absolutely cleaned up everything. Everything. And also, what a detriment to Sam if he truly had nothing to do with this and it was somebody else. Now he has to live with this for the rest of his life. And maybe he didn't do it and he did come home and he did find his fiance just completely brutalized and it was somebody else. And now you have a bunch of people sitting on the internet, speculating about what happened in this case because you decided not to do your job. The top vertebrae is the only one with the ball joint. The rest are connected by muscle and tendons. Only 3 hours. I'm beginning to wonder what she had to do with who if it went this fast. No, this is all wrong. State investigators would have to be brought in due to lack of evidence or lack of experience. Federal investigators can be consultant if your department is small. But they didn't do any of that. They didn't do any of that. They also decided that they were going to mark that it was a suicide on the scene before they even knew that she had 10 wounds and a head gash. 10 other wounds to the back of her neck. I'm a big fan of evidence, but none is here. Yes. Whatever happened or came of the phone or the laptop, they handed it over to the police. Why did he call his attorney family members before he even knew anything was wrong? If innocent, wouldn't you call a locksmith first? Why even panic assuming the worst has happened and call lawyers? I thought his first phone call was 911. Am I wrong? Hold on. Let's see. Sam Goldberg called who? He found Ellen. He called 911. Ooh, civil suit reveals new details. All right, we'll get that too. Give me a second. Let's keep going through this. People do prey on people, but it's the speed that makes me wonder, did she witness something or something on that line? Well, that's the thing, right? So the thing is everybody thinks that it's because his uncle was a very prominent lawyer or is or was or whatever in Philly. This is how a crime scene is done. Secure the scene, no time limit to vacate the scene, gather all statements, photographs, identify all objects, interview all people, gather all medications, more. Yes. Yes. Charlie, the way I wish that you could scream that from the rooftops on this case. This is how a crime scene is done. Secure the scene. Was never secured. It was open overnight. Anybody could have walked in and out of that apartment. When his uncle asked if he could go into the apartment, the manager of the apartment complex called the police And she's like, what do I do? Do I let anybody in here? And they were like, yeah, he could go in there. And she's like, well, I don't want anybody to see this the way that it is. And they were like, well, just call crime scene cleanup and get them to clean it up. And then that was it. He called his family attorney judge first. Interesting. I did not know that detail. It feels to me that the attack started from the front, head gash, the stabs, her turning to try to get away, followed by the next stabs, and then the chest stab. See, I disagree. I think the head wound came first. I think it was bam, and then in the back. And then as she started to give out and turned is when it was finished. And that's why there's no defensive wounds, because she was so disoriented by a head gash first. Yeah, Miranda, you and the rest of us. You and the rest of us. Even though I never finished to become a crime scene investigator, I got to be honest with you, in another life, I would have been a prosecutor, I think. Mr. Goldberg, Sam Goldberg, stated that he returned to the 6th floor accompanied by a building security guard, later identified as Philip Hanton, and forced open the door. So now, Philip Hanton, I believe, is the concierge in the documentary, and said he went up by himself. This is a lie. This is a lie. Who told who? Sam Goldberg stated he returned to the 6th floor accompanied by a building security guard, later identified as Philip Hanton, who is the concierge for downstairs, I believe. Let me see if that's who he is. Let me see. Because if that's who it is, hold on. Philip Hanton. Ellen Greenberg. Yes. That's who I think it is. Hold on. Philip Hanton. So here, let's watch this. He is allowed to, or he went upstairs. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. This is the cam footage. Give me a second. Ads. Sorry, guys. Okay. This is Philip right here. This gentleman right here. And he even says in the documentary, the only way that he was able to go upstairs was with police or paramedics. They have footage. They have video surveillance of Sam coming downstairs asking this gentleman if he will go upstairs with him. And this gentleman says, no, I cannot, because it is against policy for me to leave my post. So no one goes upstairs with him. So I need to know, did Sam say that a security guard went up with him, or did the police say it? Because this fact is untrue. Why do you think the first 48 hours are very important? The more time, the more likely the criminal will get away. All evidence needs to be laid out and examined. This just wants to make me come out. Yeah, and I have to tell you, you know what, Charlie? Do me a favor. Watch this documentary. Because you know what they do? They go in, they clean the apartment, and then they call like CSI, and then they come in and they're like, all right, take pictures. Of what? Of what? Everything has been so meticulously cleaned. Yeah, well, that's the best question. So the question is, are they going to be held responsible for this nonsense? And we've seen time after time where people don't do their jobs and then they get, promotions. There's promotions. Once inside, Mr. Goldberg discovered the victim seated on the kitchen floor with her head slouched over, which is also how the investigators found her, which he had stated on the phone that he was trying to do CPR. He was going to do CPR and that he was laying her down. How is she still seated? Mr. Goldberg, all subjects must be interviewed. This will be the only way to see if they are lying. Develop speech patterns. No, security will do what the police instruct them to do. No option, or they get charged. No, security went up with the police. The concierge went up with the police. People just want accountability from law enforcement courts. No prosecution is possible because they botched investigation evidence, but just admit they messed up. Was not a suicide. Many will accept it. Yeah, I don't understand why they couldn't just do the bare minimum of their job. Goldberg recounted that he immediately called 911 in accordance with the emergency operator's instructions. Mr. Goldberg lifted the victim's slouched head in order to perform CPR. So he was going to do CPR while she was sitting up. Okay. At that moment, Mr. Goldberg discovered the knife lodged in the victim's chest. No, he did not. It was long after that when he was trying to get her sweatshirt off. She was sitting. When they found her, she was sitting. Medics arrived and pronounced the victim dead at 6:40 p.m. After taking an initial statement from Mr. Goldberg, PPD officers accompanied him to a police station for further questioning and released him that evening. No summary or other detailed record of that interrogation is included in the record provided to this court. Why? Wait, what? No summary or other detailed record of that interrogation is included in the record provided to this court, nor was one made available to experts who later investigated the case. What? His interrogation was never given to experts. Why? Why? Why even take him in to interview him then? That is a possibility. That is a possibility. Wecht report. Furthermore, there is no indication in that record that Mr. Hanton or any other building staff member was ever questioned by law enforcement officials. There is no indication that Mr. Hanton, the security guard that Sam claimed went into this building, or any other staff member was ever questioned by law enforcement officials. This case gets worse. It gets worse. Here's the problem. Homicide has no statute of limitations. The case can be reopened if there is new evidence. The case will be opened and examined. These investigators can be investigated for dereliction of duty. I don't know what that means. But the thing is they've now, the reason that we're here is because they now have just ruled this as a suicide again, completely closing this case. This falls on the supervisors for these investigators. This is all wrong. Jesus, my blood pressure just went up. Charlie, me and you both. Me and you both. Thank you, Ralphie. I'm pretty convinced this is a cover-up for something. I have an incredibly hard time believing anyone is this incompetent. Ralphie. Was Proctor on this case? So, yeah. Yeah. Did they collect the evidence in red Solo cups? Assuming the existence of interdimensional quibble wave. I almost got through that like that was serious. Astonishingly, in subsequent written declaration, Mr. Hanton stated that he did not accompany Mr. Goldberg to the 6th floor on the night in question and was not present when Mr. Goldberg entered the apartment. So, nobody was actually there. Sam says somebody was there, but nobody was there. Dr. Osborne and his supervisor at the MEO, Sam Galino, later recalled several omissions from Mr. O's investigation. Notably, Mr. O failed to report 10 additional stab wounds to the back of the victim's neck and head. That brought the total number of stab wounds to 20. So they ruled it a homicide and didn't even report. They didn't even know that she had 10 additional stab wounds to the back of the neck and head. Osborne's final report. One of those wounds was deep enough to rupture the dura mater, a thick membrane that envelops the spine. The top of the victim's scalp also bore a deep incision wound, approximately 6 1/2 centimeters long. Do I have a ruler? I don't. I need to know how long 6.5 centimeters is. Any of these trolls want to show me how long 6.5 centimeters is? That's what everybody thinks, Susan. That's what everybody thinks. Neither the incision nor the additional stab wounds appear to have attracted Mr. O's attention, an omission that Dr. Osborne characterized as unusual. So even Dr. Osborne's like, hold on a second. Yeah, she had a brain stab wound too. Yes, she did. But even even Dr. Osborne's like, hold on a second. Okay, so about 2.5 inches. So that's about here, right? It's like 1 inch, 2 inches, another like that, maybe. I need a ruler. Do I have a ruler? Hold on. I got something somewhere. I'm sure. I'm a visual learner, friends. Yes. Okay. I have one of these. This will help. Would your first thought when you found your loved one with a knife in their chest that they did it to themselves? No. No. I'm already married. Sorry, John Smith. Well, let's take a look at it. Oh, so here's 2.5. Miranda. Okay, so here's 2.5. From here to here. 2.5 inches. That was in her head. That was in her head. Y'all don't think that's enough to do some damage? That's not enough to do damage in somebody's brain? And Sam has a wife and children now. That's right. That's right. Not enough money to get me away from my husband, that's for sure. I have a funny story to tell you guys later, but we'll do that later. But even Dr. Osborne is like, hold on a second. An omission that Dr. Osborne characterized as unusual. So even this medical examiner was like, hold up. Why aren't you guys doing the bare minimum of your job? Aw, I like Snugs and Cuds. Yeah, it's lethal. Examine the department policy on procedures. This is open to the public. Just ask to see it. Open records. Okay. What part of the head? So it was in the back of her head here. In the back of her head. Which means that could have been the first injury that she sustained, which is why she didn't have any defensive wounds. Dr. Osborne also observed on the victim's body multiple contusions, bruises on the upper and lower extremities in various stages of resolution, which means that she had multiple bruises in various stages of healing, which means that she sustained these bruises over a longer period of time. And this is something that Detective O failed to note again. Look at that. Look at that. R.I.P. Diane Keaton. I love Diane. Dr. Galino also acknowledged that Mr. O did not take the temperature of the victim's body, a standard method of determining time of death. The stab wound. So what she had to the top of her head was the stab wound, is what they said. If the case is closed, call or email the department to get a copy of the case. This will be very enlightening when comparing case versus cause. Interesting. Another thing I learned in my group of people with psychiatry problems is that if you have medication on hand. So here's another interesting thing, Grace. They said that she was searching through her laptop of quick and painless ways to go. She had medications. She had ways to do that. There are other ways of doing that. So if she was searching quick and painless, this is the one she chose? That's not true. That's not true. They actually do. I did the research. Watch my long form video. So Dr. Osborne is saying in his deposition that these guys just didn't do their jobs. He didn't take the temperature of the victim's body, which he's supposed to do. In addition, Mr. O did not specify which parts of the body he tested for rigor mortis, which also could have helped determine exactly when the victim died. So he didn't do that. John, I have heard of Ed Gein. Yes, especially recently. Right, she had Klonopin. It was apartment building, but it was basically a hotel, right? They had key fobs, and it was a very nice building. They had security, they had key fobs, but yeah. Have her computer dumped, examine all deleted files. Nothing is ever deleted. Oh my God, this is infuriating, Charlie. Charlie, welcome to the stream. This is a place where we talk about cases like this, and it makes you want to burn your own house down. So welcome. We're happy to have you. Yeah, she had Klonopin. It was Klonopin and a sleep aid, I believe. Yeah, but how do we know when and who did those searches is true? I see cover up with Sam's family did it before. Even think it's possible. So let's see. She was mentally ill, his own alibi. So the thing is she was having a lot of anxiety. She was starting to see a psychiatrist. She was starting to try to get her life back on track. She talked to her fiance about, taking these meds, and had even asked him, would you love me if I was crazy? And I have to tell you, I went through my own period of time where I was horrifically starting to lose myself, and had to go to the doctor and had to be put on medication. And it's rough. It's very rough. And it's scary. And, I can relate to where she was at the beginning of that, but we don't know how far she was, or, we don't know any of that. But again, he did not test for rigor mortis. Dr. G explained in his deposition and testimony that rigor mortis tends to be the first detected in the small muscles, such as in the jaw and in the fingers. Had rigor mortis been present in the victim's legs, Dr. G agreed that it would have been suggested an earlier time of death than assumed. So they didn't even check her. They didn't test her. They didn't even look at her enough to decide if she had died in that period of time or not. However, Mr. O only noted that the body was mostly flaccid, without specifying which parts were examined. Evidence that would have been provided critical and essential clues into the timing of the victim's death was thus completely overlooked. Completely overlooked. And not a crime scene. Absolutely. Well, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it depends. I'd have to hear it to see how he talked about her. Like if it was truly degrading. Because it could be true. Like if something happened to me, my husband could tell the police like she struggled with anxiety, she struggled with OCD, she struggled with these things. And it might not be derogatory. But yeah. Yeah. So this is something. Dr. Osborne initially concluded that the manner of death was, in fact, homicide. As a result of this determination, PPD detectives obtained a search warrant identifying various items in the apartment, quote, of evidentiary value in the investigation of a homicide by cutting instrument. When the PPD detectives arrived to execute the warrant the day after the victim was found, they discovered that the kitchen had been scoured and a number of the apartment's contents removed. Okay? Let's break that down. When the detectives went to the apartment the very next day, they discovered that the kitchen had been scoured and a number of the apartment's contents removed. Now, could that have happened had they secured the scene initially? No, it couldn't have. No, it couldn't have. But here we are. Good night, Johnny. The building's property manager, Melissa Ware, later explained that an unnamed PPD representative had advised her to call a third-party service to have the apartment thoroughly cleaned. There is no evidence in the record that Miss Ware, There is no evidence in the record that Miss Ware, the unidentified cleaning service, or the PPD representatives were ever interviewed by investigating authorities. Look at that. Look at that. Where was this mentioned in the opening of the case? Medicine is and must be listed in the first or second paragraph of the case. Well, we're on the ME's report. These are standard practices. No, there's a lot of standard practices in this case that they just didn't do. Just didn't. In the weeks following the autopsy, Dr. Osborne obtained new information that prompted him to reconsider his initial determination that the victim had died by homicide. First, Dr. Osborne recalled receiving an informal report from Dr. Lucy Rourke Adams, a neuropathologist, following a brief examination of a piece of the victim's spinal tissue. By Dr. Osborne's recollection, Dr. Rourke Adams determined the victim could have remained sufficiently mobile to inflict further wounds even after the dura mater surrounding her spinal cord had been pierced. Dr. Osborne acknowledged that Dr. Rourke Adams' observation of the tissue did not include a histologic or microscopic examination. Are these standard practice? I mean, that's important. Oh, bye, Tika. Bye, Miranda. Dr. Osborne's recollection is the only summary of her findings in the record. Jesus Christ. In reevaluating his initial determination, Dr. Osborne also considered new information about the victim's mental health. Specifically, the victim had recently begun seeing Dr. Berman, who recalled seeing the victim on 3 occasions in the 2 weeks preceding her death. Now, what I have to ask is, was she interviewed? Because that is also something, as an investigator, I would want to know. How did she seem when she went to the psychiatrist? Unbelievable. Dr. Berman described the victim. Okay, so here she is. Dr. Berman described the victim as initially presenting with severe anxiety, with which she had been struggling for the previous 2 months. The victim partially attributed her anxiety to difficulty with work and was considering quitting. When the victim was asked about Mr. Goldberg, Dr. Berman recalled she had nothing but good things to say about him, and that's fine. Rita, hi. How are you? But that's the thing. He could be great, and this could still be somebody else. She described him as wonderful. And to treat her symptoms, Dr. Berman prescribed the medications that were later recovered from the victim's bedroom drawer. Additionally, Dr. Berman recalled having no concerns that the victim was suicidal. As a supervisor, I would have the investigator sit down and give a brief on the case. Discussing the case out loud brings questions to light. Who, what, where, when, and why, and how makes the cops think. Yeah, but they didn't even take it that far. It's so sad. Approximately 1 month after the autopsy was performed, Dr. Osborne attended a meeting with Dr. Galino, a representative of the DAO, and 2 representatives of the PPD. In that meeting, this is the meeting that he has 0 notes for. He's having a meeting with another doctor and 2 representatives from the police department, and there's no recording of this. Okay? In that meeting, the DAO and PPD representatives discussed with Dr. Osborne, quote, their interactions with Mr. Goldberg and the statement Mr. Goldberg gave, which is great. That's great. I love that for them. Dr. Osborne was told that but why are we only taking one man's statement? She was stressed because her boyfriend and family didn't understand how her stress was affecting her. Agreed. That was also a big part of it. You can see it in the text messages. When she texted Sam and she's like, I think I need to quit work. He's like, just power through, kid. They were pushing her, having unrealistic expectations, not being understanding. And not a lot of people don't understand anxiety and things like that. And I get that. But there were a lot of text messages between her and Sam, and she was crying for help. And he's like, get over it. And when you're going through these things, they're already you feel very alone. You feel crazy. And then when people are just like, God, you're so annoying. It's hard. But I just don't understand why we're taking the word of one person. We are discussing Ellen Greenberg's case. It's a crime case. Dr. Osborne was told that Mr. Goldberg had broken down the apartment door and a security guard had witnessed it, which we know now to be not true. Furthermore, Dr. Osborne was told that an unnamed investigating officer found the door's swing bar lock in a damaged condition consistent with Mr. Goldberg's account of forced entry. Okay? Yes. It's very lonely. It was the first time Dr. Osborne had been called into the meeting to discuss the manner of death listed on the death certificate. Based on the information provided in the meeting, Dr. Osborne reversed his prior medical opinion and determined that the victim's wounds must have been self-inflicted. Consequently, Dr. Osborne amended the death certificate to indicate that the manner of death was, in fact, a suicide. Dissatisfied with the investigation into their daughter's death, the parents hired their own outside experts to conduct investigations into the manner of the victim's death. We summarize their findings below. Renowned forensic pathologist, Dr. Cyril Wecht, examined the existing investigation records and issued a report on January 11th of 2012. Dr. Wecht noted that suicides by stabbing are increasingly rare, as persons who die by suicide opt for simpler choices, such as drugs, which she had, hanging, or firearms. In the rare suicide by stabs to the torso, the person will usually remove the clothing first, and after a few initial tentative stabbings to assess painfulness, death is typically effectuated through a single wound, most likely in the chest. We love that. Yeah, maybe. We'll never know. Hi, Rich Cat. How are you? By contrast, the victim in this case sustained multiple deep stab wounds over her clothing. Dr. Wecht also observed that the instrument or instruments that caused the wounds entered her body from different angles and directions. Dr. Wecht explained that this further mitigated against the conclusion that the victim's wounds were self-inflicted. Dr. Wecht found several other critical flaws and omissions in the materials which he provided. Notably, he found little support in the record to suggest that the victim possessed the requisite state of mind to commit suicide. Hi, AA. How are you? No, and not everybody suffers the same, John, either. That's the other thing. Everybody experiences it differently. Yeah, we are. We're good. So far, so good. She left no note. She was not deemed suicidal by her psychiatrist and seemed her usual self when she communicated with her mother and her friend earlier on the day of her death. For these reasons, Dr. Wecht concluded that the manner of the victim's death was strongly suspicious of homicide. Which, again, if we don't know what it is, why not say undetermined? Dr. Wecht also noticed the absence of records from the police station interrogation of Mr. Goldberg. Where are those? I'd love to see them. The omission makes it difficult to draw any conclusions regarding the victim's behavior and mental state in the hours before her death. Dr. Wecht also noted that the investigators made no effort to examine the knife found in the victim's chest for fingerprints. What? Investigators made no effort to examine the knife found in the victim's chest for fingerprints. Manthan M., hello. They didn't test to see if she was in rigor mortis. They didn't test the temperature on her body. They didn't test to see if there were fingerprints on the fucking knife that was in her body. They didn't interview anybody in this building. What are we doing? Dr. Ross briefly stated that his opinion, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, the manner of the victim's death is a homicide. In a second report issued January 10th of 2017, Dr. Ross explained that his examination of the records revealed evidence of a stab wound which penetrated the cranial cavity and severed the cranial nerves and brain. Right here, quote, "This is a homicide." Yeah, Charlie. Yeah. Yes. The doctor should explain himself as to why he ruled it a suicide. Well, he said there was just a closed door meeting. They came in and he changed his mind. And when they said, "Why did you change your mind?" he said, "I have no notes for that meeting." That's what he said. We're talking about the Ellen Greenberg case. This case is a travesty of epic proportions. Yes. Yes. Evidence of a stab wound which penetrated the cranial cavity and severed the cranial nerves and brain. Susan, that's what they said in the documentary. The best way to hide a homicide is to rule it a suicide. And they're not wrong. Dr. Ross opined that the wound would have caused the victim to suffer severe pain, cranial nerve dysfunction, and traumatic brain signs and symptoms. So I would love to ask these investigators and these medical examiners, could this be the first wound that she sustained? Which is why she doesn't have any defensive wounds on her body. Because also, 20 stab wounds, to me, is rage. It seems very angry. Stabbing is also a crime that is extremely personal. It's extremely up close and personal. Everyone is guilty. Everyone is extremely guilty of not giving this family the investigation that they deserve. Dr. Ross also observed marks and bruises on the victim's neck consistent with strangulation. Finally, Dr. Ross noted the multiple bruises over the victim's body of varying ages, consistent with repeated beating. It is crazy. So she has injuries that these doctors would consider from long-term abuse. Dr. Ross issued a third report after examining newer records. The report contains a 60-item list of what Dr. Ross characterizes as, quote, reasons to change the manner of death from suicide back to the original determination of homicide. Somebody needs to explain. I totally agree with that. Somebody needs to explain. Footnote. Dr. Ross listed the following reasons for his recommendation. Number 1, the swing bar lock on the apartment door, which was disturbed, not broken from the inside. Number 2, the alleged absence of Mr. Hanton, the security guard, while Mr. Goldberg re-entered the apartment. Number 3, the constellation of scene findings, which is inconsistent with suicide and compatible with being staged. Hi, Al Jakad. Number 4, the bloodstain patterns in photographs, which are inconsistent with suicide. Number 5, minimal cast-off of blood, which is indicative of homicide. Number 6, stab wounds in the front of the victim's body inflicted after head and neck stab wounds, which is inconsistent with suicide. Number 7, bloodstain patterns and void patterns inconsistent with suicide. That's the other thing. Did anybody take a look at the bloodstains? Couldn't be this police department. Could never. Number 8, no cast off patterns, drip patterns, splash patterns from head wounds, either standing or sitting, inconsistent with suicide. Number 9, a reconstruction of head wound patterns would cause ample blood stains, which are not present. Number 10, bloodstain patterns in front of the body and void patterns, which are inconsistent with self-infliction. Number 11, the towel and the pair of glasses in the victim's hand were indicative of staging. Now, one thing that we know about this towel, she had a white towel in her hand that was untouched by any blood. They even noted that it was, quote, remarkably clean. A white towel. Okay, this woman was stabbed 20 times. And she had a white towel that didn't have a drop of blood on it. Forensic medicine. We're going over the ME's report for this case of Ellen Greenberg. Or, I'm sorry, the deposition. I'm sorry. Number 12, the towel in the victim's hand would have prevented her from stabbing the back of her head. That's right. Wait a second. Hold on. So you're telling me that she stabbed herself 20 times, 10 in the front, 10 in the back, 1 in the head, and she still had something in either hand when she was on the ground? She had a towel in her left hand and her glasses in her right hand? Does she have a third fucking hand? Oh my God, I completely missed. I didn't even think about that. How is it that she would have had her glasses in her right hand and her towel in the left hand, and then she stabs herself 20 times and still holds on to these items? Wow. I just had a fucking revelation. 13, staging is further indicated by minimal blood stains on the towel. Exactly. She's a fucking octopus then. It'll never make sense. It won't. And her family will never get it. 14, if the towel had been held in the victim's left hand, then only her right hand could have been used for the stabbing. 15, one-handed stabbing would have been inconsistent with self-infliction. That makes sense. You would have done both. You would have done both instead of like that. And think about it. The knife blade was long. So for you to get that through on yourself, you would have had to use 2 hands, which means she wouldn't have had anything else in her hands. If the towel had been held in the victim's left hand during the stabbing, then only the right hand would have been used for stabbing, but one-handed stabbing is inconsistent with self-infliction. How do you explain the 21 stabs? So let me just show you this here. There's a picture. Guys, warning, it's a little bit, it's a mock-up, but it's a little bit, let's see, stab wounds, if we can find that. There's a picture of it that I found. I added it in my, my video. Okay. So we're looking at these 2 pictures. So you have this one where she stabbed straight to the back of the head. And then you have these marks, which are twisted all sorts of different ways. And then you have this one right here. And look at how deep these go. It's so sad. 17, Bloodstain evidence is inconsistent with the ability to stab the back of the head and chest due to injuries to the brain, cranial nerves, brain blood vessels, cerebrospinal fluid, and the spinal cord nerves, in addition to the horrific pain. Absence of cut wounds to the hands, which is further inconsistent with suicide. That's another interesting point. No, she didn't have any. She didn't have any defensive wounds, but she also didn't have any wounds to her hands. And somebody and we know. I mean, we just know through seeing other cases that when you stab someone, there's a lot of blood. It gets very slippery. How did she not have any wounds on her hands? Stab wounds that are generally inconsistent with suicide, since they will cause excruciating, if not incapacitating, pain. So she would have had to go through all of this pain and then continue to stab herself 19 more times. And El Jekad, I was telling you guys, our mod, El Jekad was the one who brought up the point of how much exertion it takes to stab someone. Now imagine doing that on yourself. Not only are you going through incapacitating pain, but you're going through the physical exertion of 20 stab wounds. It does not make any sense. There's the lack of suicide note, stabbing that is inconsistent with not causing pain, the availability to means to escape out of the residence prior to the incident, which indicates that the victim was not trapped with nowhere to go, the lack of suicidal ideations, the lack of previous suicidal attempts, the lack of mental disorders, the fact that the victim's sole mental condition was an anxiety disorder, the therapy that the victim was receiving as treatment for anxiety, the failure to administer a SA kit to find evidence of binding and S abuse. No, she wasn't under the influence at all. Exactly. You would get weaker as you go. The lack of controlled substance abuse, right there. The absence of controlled substances in the victim's body at the time of autopsy. She was not under the influence of anything. The absence of hesitation wounds on the victim's arms, hesitation wounds on the head and chest attributable to staging. I am one bacon bear. It is. It's a miracle. She's a medical miracle. The fact that the victim was incapacitated by strangulation. That's what a medical examiner says, that there was strangulation. Defensive wounds and binding to wrists. What is this? The presence of defensive wounds on the legs. The presence of older wounds on the victim's extremities. Wounds to the brain inconsistent with locomotion or motor activity. Wounds to the chest inconsistent with locomotion or motor activity. The crime scene indicates control. The presence of knives in the sink, which are inconsistent with suicide and indicate staging. The lack of scene findings for suicide. Scene findings? They didn't. I'm going to start yelling. They didn't investigate the scene. A failure to examine rigor mortis in the victim's feet. The failure to document the wounds to the victim's head and neck in initial MEO investigation. The findings regarding the victim's head and neck during the autopsy, which indicate homicide. The failure to examine subtle blood stains in the sink, counter, other areas, which indicate clean up and staging. That's what they think. She was paralyzed. The failure to process the scene for homicide. Right. She puts the other knives up. The failure to photograph the, quote, male actor for injuries. Wow. Wow. Male actor. The failure to examine the male actor for blood. Henry C. Lee, founder of Henry C. Lee Institute of Forensic Science at the University of New Haven, issued a report on January 29, 2018. After examining photographs of the scene, Dr. Lee determined that some of the wounds on the back of the neck, on the back of the victim's head, would have been difficult to inflict herself given their location. Really? Really? The bloodstain pattern suggested that the victim was in a standing position when she sustained some of her stab wounds, but was in the seated position when she was found. I'm sorry. I'm getting to a point that I have spoken too much in this stream. Lack of law enforcement, medical examination, and judicial explanation. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Difficult, if not impossible. Of course. Right. The blood-stained pattern suggested that the victim was in a standing position when she sustained some of her stab wounds, but was in the seated position in which she was found when sustaining other wounds. So obviously, she's losing her life. She's, I'm sure, blacking out. She's in incredible pain. Her body's going into shock, and somehow she can just continue to keep going. A real Energizer bunny, this one. Dr. Lee noted the multiple contusions on the victim's body in various stages of healing. That's the bruises, which would tell you that she sustained these bruises over a period of time, as well as the sheer number of wounds that the victim sustained on the day of her death. In light of these details, Dr. Lee concluded that the number and type of wounds and bloodstain patterns observed are consistent with a homicide scene. I don't know what those allegations are. What are those? Can you lead me to them? How did this come across? So on Mondays, a lot of times we just chat like this in a live, and I had pulled up, just cases that were kind of trending at the time, and this was one of them because her documentary was coming out, and I had asked the chat if they were interested in hearing about it because when we had talked about the original People article, we were just talking about, is this something that you guys would want to see? And they said yes. So I, went and looked in the documentary and watched it, and then I did my research online, and then on the lives we do stuff like this. We go deeper and further into the cases so that we can have live chats about the things that are happening. So that's really how I came across this particular case. Or it could have started as she was sitting and stood up trying to get away. Well, she was found in the sitting position. The failure to examine the male actor's clothing for bloodstains. Right. Were his clothes taken into evidence? The absence of the brain tumors that may have caused suicide. The absence of any incapacitating diseases to cause suicide. The minimal evidence of suicide in contrast with the overwhelming evidence of homicide, which, pursuant to principles of forensic methodology, means the case should have been pursued as a homicide. Yeah, that would be great. I would love that. I would love that. One of the things that I actually just did, I put it in my members only tab, but I am interested in letting you guys know. One of the things that I just did was reached out to a organization called the Cold Case Coalition. And one of the things that I'm going to start doing is like a cold case of the month. I want to really make sure that, uh, you know, as I'm building this platform, we're doing something positive. We're doing something to make some sort of a change if we can. So, I'm doing that. I have not heard back from them, but that's not going to stop me. I actually just got done with my first cold case script. Not my first cold case, but one of my cold case scripts that we're going to be highlighting every month. So yeah, I'd love to discuss cases or see them. Dr. Osborne, initial conclusion that the manner of death was a homicide, which was only changed in light of information now known to be false, which is true. The findings of Dr. Emery discussed below, which indicate homicide. Dr. Ross characterizes as Dr. Emery's conclusion that the victim sustained the cut to the dura mater of her spinal cord after she was already dead. So there's that. The histologic review of slides of the victim's spinal tissue, which suggests that the manner of death was not suicide. The definition of suicide, homicide, and could not be determined used by Pennsylvania pathologists. The published standards of the National Association of Medical Examiners name, which, according to Dr. Ross, instruct that a mere more likely than not burden of proof is insufficient for a death to be classified as suicide. That's interesting. Name standards requirement that findings of suicides must be supported by 70% or a greater degree of medical certainty, and 60 the necessary degree of medical certainty to support the conclusion that the victim died by suicide, which in this case is patently lacking. Suspect confessed and gave detail. That's amazing. If you're new to my channel, one of the things that you might like to check out is I just did a interview with a gentleman. He's the coroner for Indiana, and his name is Jeff Jellison. And what he's doing is he's taking it's not a cold, it's complicated, but I don't know if you know what Fox Hollow Farm is. But anyways, he's got a bunch of bone fragments, and people who are unidentified, and the police department's like, we're not going to take care of it. And he's like, absolutely not. These families need closure. So he started to get DNA testing for these bone fragments so that he could give these families closure. You might be interested in that. I could listen to him for days. Such a wonderful man. I wish I could interview him every day of the week. My heart melts. I love him so much. He's probably, if he ever sees us, he's going to be like, freak. But, yeah. It's funny, MJG, because I know you're coming in here to troll, but I mean, the real question is if it was somebody close to you who didn't get justice, you would care. You would care. And that's the important part of this, is these people are held to a certain standard to do a certain job. So MJG is being a real jerk off and said she died in 2011. Who cares? I care. I care, because if that was somebody who was close to me, I would care. And I would want to see justice for them. And if it affected you the same way, you would care. But you're just coming in here to be a prick. Thanks for the engagement. Detective Scott Elliman, a specialist in a crime scene reconstruction, conducted an analysis of investigation materials and issued a report on April 14th of 2017. Although Detective Elliman declined to make a general determination regarding the manner of the victim's death, he called attention to several conspicuous details in the investigation materials. The bulk of his report is devoted to the bloodstain evidence in the scene photographs, which in Detective Eelman's view is inconsistent with the position in which the victim was found. There's so many things that are inconsistent in this case. Dr. Eelman explained that the bloodstains on the victim's head branch out in several directions, indicating that her head was in different positions as this blood flowed. For example, one significant flow pattern moves across her cheek, and so that's what I was talking about before. Was that the blood stains were going from her ear to her cheek and not up and down, which are completely inconsistent. Thanks, Mary. Federal law, as soon as a felony is committed, prisons are required to take DNA from all prisoners. It's gathered at the county jail level. Also, DNA is taken and compared within days. Yeah, and put into CODIS, right? One significant flow pattern moves across her cheek and rearward into the hairlines behind the left ear. Such a movement of blood would be contrary to gravity, given that the victim appeared to have died with her head slumped forward. Right. So she was found with blood from here to here, but she was found slumped forward, which would have meant that the blood would have gone from top to bottom. In addition, the bloodstain evidence, Dr. Eelman examined photographs of the apartment door. While acknowledging some damage to the door component of the swing bar lock, Detective Eelman noted that the door jamb component of the lock did not appear to show any damage. You know what? And this is why I should not be an investigator, because I didn't even think about that. If the door jamb or if the door lock is broken, why is the door jamb not broken? Which goes back to my original theory. Could he have broken it from the inside, right? He has the door handle and he pulls it. I mean, it was 4 tiny screws. He couldn't get that broken? Here, let me show it to you. Let's see. Images. So I want to show you guys the door lock, because it doesn't seem, and also with this, I mean, I've done what's the word? Drywall myself. I can rip it out with my hands. It's not that tough. So when you look at this, I want you to take a look. Where is it? Here's the knife, by the way. Let's take a look at this. Here's the knife. And here's the door lock. But do me a favor, give me 1 second. I have drank my body weight in water. I'm going to need a minute. I got to go to the bathroom. Potty break, everyone. I should have done this on a horizontal live stream. I'll be right back. So, thank you for waiting. Sorry. I'm trying to get my water intake in, okay? Right. The jam would have been busted. And you have to, okay, so this is why I'd really like to talk to you or a homicide detective, because you have to take into consideration the body's last movements to self-preserve and the last breath. I don't know anything about that. I don't know what a body does in death. But yeah. So this does not even seem broken. Right. Don't you think the whole thing would have been off now that I'm looking at it? The screws from the back are exposed. Maybe the whole thing would have gone. But great. But you would think that's such a great point. You would think that if this was broken, right, and he was truly locked from the outside, that the door jamb would in fact, with the handle, let me get back into my position here. The door jamb with the handle would have been broken, and it was not. Interesting. Also noted the absence of debris on the floor from the damage from the swing bar lock, which we wouldn't have pictures of, I'm sure. Dr. Eelman drew attention to several glaring omissions from the investigative materials provided to him. No photographs appear to have been taken of the refrigerator, kitchen pantry, kitchen ceiling, or any portion of wall between kitchen and the front door, which is where she was. Yeah, I think it was an invisible door, actually. Maybe they didn't even have a door. I don't know in this case anymore. We can just, you know what, guys? In this chat, we can just make up the rules as we go along for this case. We can just do whatever we want. The absence of any photographs of Mr. Goldberg or his footwear or clothing, which is very interesting. But the thing is we only know, quote unquote, know that she was alive because of what he said. How do we know he didn't kill her earlier in the day and then changed and cleaned up and took a shower and went down to the gym? How do we don't know that. The body tries to take one last breath. Ugh. It's so sad. BioMX, a Virginia-based consulting firm specialized in computational biomechanics and accident reconstruction, analyzed case materials and issued a report on May 12th of 2021. They determined that the wounds to the victim's head and neck were consistent with focalized stabbing by an assailant rather than self-infliction. No, I know. We try to keep it as factual as possible here without speculation. I mean, I do have my opinions on things. But, Medell, my love, hi. They further determined that the wounds inflicted on her chest and abdomen would result in impaired motor function, precluding repeatable sustained motions of the upper extremity, such as in purposeful stabbing oneself. I.e. saying that she would not be capable of stabbing herself from the injuries that she has sustained. Okay. Finally, the analyst observed the contusions, her bruises. I've streamed long enough, guys. Starting to lose my words. The contusions across the victim's body, the bruises across Ellen's body, determined that they were, quote, consistent with assailant-oriented trauma and not with self-inflicted injuries. The analysts conclude that the victim's manner of death is not biomechanically consistent with suicide. What page are you on? I'm on page 13. Page 13. As a result of the additional experts, the parents made 2 attempts to persuade government officials to reopen the investigation. The first was in 2018 when the Pennsylvania Office Attorney General, OAG, agreed to re-examine the case. The parents initially contacted Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner in an effort to reopen the criminal investigation. Mr. Krasner had been previously retained by the parents to assist with the investigation. He referred to the case to the OAG to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest. Conducted its own investigation and concluded that suicide was properly... Wait, what is this? Oh, consequently, the OAG, so the Office of the Attorney General, conducted its own investigation and concluded that suicide was properly determined to be the manner of the victim's death. Nello cry high. The second attempt was initiated on June 19th of 2019 when the parents' attorneys who wrote a letter to Dr. Galino detailing the experts' findings. The letter noted that the experts were unanimous in their opinion and the victim did not die by suicide. They urged Dr. Galino to undertake a closer examination and a more thorough investigation of her death. In response to the letter, Dr. Galino instructed Dr. Emery, an MEO examiner who was trained as a neuropathologist, to examine a specimen from the victim's spinal cord. In a March 8th, 2019 email message to a journalist, an OAG representative explained its conclusion as follows. Following the initial 2011 investigation carried out by the PPD, our office received this case in 2018 on a conflict referral from the DA's office. We conducted our own thorough investigation to determine a manner of death, interviewing a chief medical examiner of Philadelphia and the medical examiner who performed the autopsy, meeting with the family's representatives and reviewing information they provided to our attorneys, among other steps. Among the additional evidence we reviewed were web searches for methods of committing suicide, quick death, and depression done on the victim's computer in the weeks before her death, and text messages between the victim and a family member on the day of her death showing the decedent in serious mental distress. Our office has concluded that the evidence supports suicide as a manner of death. Accordingly, we have communicated our findings to the family through its representatives and have closed this investigation. Imagine how that has to feel to this family, to the Greenbergs, every single time. Every single time. I am reading cases. We're talking about the Ellen Greenberg case. I can sleep. Thank you. Fuel. Welcome in. Yeah, I gotta tell you, police affidavits are like riveting. Hold on, my sister's calling me. She's gonna keep calling me if I don't answer. Honestly, she calls me like an ex-boyfriend. Everyone wave to my sister.
Hi. Let's see what they say about me.
Say hello. All right, I have to go. Bye. Oh, boy. In response, the parents asserted that long before the OAG obtained access to any information purportedly extracted from the victim's computer, the chain of custody had been broken because the victim's computers were improperly removed from her apartment and in the possession of third parties days after her death. And do we remember, friends, who that third party was? That third party was Sam's uncle, a man named James Schwartzman, who was a prominent lawyer in Philadelphia. No, it's not Little Ham. It's other ham. It's pork chop. Thank you so much, Charlie. I really appreciate it. The text messages are a red flag too if you think that your spouse is inside and something happened to them. Exactly. I love that he says, what was my favorite one? You don't even know. Because he's like, I'm so fucking mad. I'm so pissed. You don't even know like what's about to happen. I would love for my husband to send me a text like that. You don't even know? Don't even know what? Don't know what? It was so aggressive. So aggressive. But yeah, so third parties and the parties after her death was Sam's uncle who took her stuff. During a 45-minute visual examination of the victim's spinal tissue, Dr. Emery observed what she described as disruptions in the tissue. Emery, for a clearer picture of disruptions, causes the potential consequences. Dr. Emery excised several sections of the spinal tissue for a microscopic examination. Viewing the sections through a microscope, determined that the injury to the dura mater surrounding the victim's spine did not result in hemorrhaging, as would normally occur. Furthermore, Dr. Emery observed a disruption in the functional tissue of the spinal cord itself. Again, however, Dr. Emery did not see an indication of the vital reaction by the body to that disruption. The lack of such a vital reaction could be explained by 4 distinct possibilities. First, the blows could have been inflicted just a moment before death, meaning the victim's body did not have time to react before expiring. Second, the blows may have been inflicted moments after the victim had expired, which would have precluded hemorrhaging or other vital responses. Third, the damage could have occurred during Dr. Osborne's autopsy the morning after the victim's death. Lastly, the injury may have been simply too minor to cause reactions such as hemorrhaging or cellular death. So then the question becomes, the blows may have been inflicted moments after the victim had expired. She can't do that to herself if she's already dead. So my question becomes, if you have at least one of those options, if at least one of these things are possible, again, why not make it undetermined? I still don't understand that. Based on her findings, Dr. Emery declined to draw firm conclusions as to the manner of the victim's death. Imagine that. What is going on? My chat's like backloading. Hold on. Let me close my chat and like reopen it again. It's like I'm like getting no chats and then a bunch of chats at once. Okay. We're talking about Ellen Greenberg. The bleeding will not occur if the heart stopped before any other injuries occurred after the heart. Right. But the thing is, what I don't understand is if even one of these things can be true, if it's possible that one of these things can be true, why not at the very least, undetermined? Yeah. Exactly. Guys, if I'm not answering right away, for some reason, I get no chats and then I get a bunch of chats. So I don't know what's happening. Based on her, but even so, she declined to draw firm conclusions to the manner of the victim's death. She explained that if hemorrhaging had not occurred because the injuries were insufficiently severe, the fourth possibility described above, then there could have been minimal pain and the victim's motor skills would not have been severely impacted. Thus, Dr. Emery opined that it was not impossible that the wounds were self-inflicted. We're not saying it's not possible. But could you at least do an investigation to find out? Dr. Emery acknowledged that the lack of vital reactions to the victim's spinal injuries weighed in favor of a finding that she was already dead when the wounds were inflicted. Reviewing Dr. Emery's findings, Dr. Galino concluded that he did not have sufficient reason to reverse Dr. Osborne's determination that the victim had died by suicide. Dr. Galino explained that in his experience, damage to the upper part of the spine, such as that observed by Dr. Emery, was a common byproduct of autopsy procedures. But here's the thing. They're saying that this could have happened by Dr. Osborne. But Dr. Osborne is saying that she came in with the 10 wounds to the back of her neck. Exactly. Furthermore, Dr. Galino explained that homicides by cutting instruments tend to result in defensive wounds on the hands and forearms, which were not evident on the victim's body. By contrast, the clusters of wounds on her chest and neck, in Dr. Galino's view, were more consistent with hesitation wounds commonly inflicted during suicide. On October 15th of 2019, the parents, in their capacity as administrators of the victim's estate, filed a complaint in the trial court seeking mandamus and declaratory relief. Let's see. They wanted to revise the victim's death certificate to indicate that the death could not be determined. Not 1, but 10. Exactly. The parents alleged that the information recently supplied to the MEO, in addition to the information already known by the MEO in 2011, established as a matter of law that suicide was not the appropriate manner of death to list on the death certificate. The parents further alleged a variety of harms, including the evidentiary value that the death certificate would have had in a claim or dispute involving the victim's estate. The stigma of suicide, which deprives surviving family members of the closure and peace of mind to which they were otherwise entitled. The impact of the death certificate on the state and national mortality statistics, as well as on medical health research. Once you have a cause, now you want a suspect with motive. Who had motive to do this? Husband or wife is primary suspect until we have other leads. Phone records say, yeah. You always go with the one closest to you. And they asked him, and he was like, she's crazy. And she did this to herself. And they were like, okay. Let's see. During the course of pretrial discovery, the parties submitted several exhibits as evidence. One was a written declaration from Mr. Hanton, the security guard who was on duty at the apartment building on the night of the victim's death. Contrary to Sam Goldberg's account, Mr. Hanton maintained, and we have video evidence of it, that he did not escort Mr. Goldberg to the 6th floor, nor was he present when Mr. Goldberg forced opened the apartment door. Oh, I got glass marks. The parents also presented still images from surveillance footage, which confirmed that Mr. Goldberg went up to the apartment alone. Additionally, the parents submitted photographs of the inside of the apartment door taken the night of the victim's death. The photograph shows that the screws attaching the swing bar lock to the door were dislodged, but the door appears to be otherwise undamaged. That's the other thing. Is there a shoe mark on the front of the door? Let me cast my fishing line. In response, the MEO submitted a written declaration from Dr. Emery in which she reiterated that she could not form an opinion as to the manner of death based on her examination of the victim's spinal tissue. Dr. Emery also stated that she was unable to definitively determine why there was no sign of hemorrhaging around the injuries to the victim's spine. Are you really fishing? Because I need to know where you are and what you're fishing for. Please tell me. Avid fisherman here. Following the close of discovery, let's see. Therein, the MEO argued that the parents lacked standing as administrators of their daughter's estate because their, quote, grief and concern, however real, about the stigma of suicide do not constitute actual harm in the sense that the law requires. And because the parents failed to allege any other cognizable form of harm. Unbelievable. At a hearing on the motion of on October 15th of 2021, the parties presented their deposition testimony, and the parents stated their allegation that Dr. Osborne amended the death certificate at the PPD's urging. You're trying to catch redfish? Oh, I have a redfish story. Once when I was a little girl, my family lives on they have a place in the Gulf over it's called Grand Isle. And we go there and we go fishing, deep sea fishing. And I caught a redfish, and it was about 13 or 14 pounds. And my uncle, I was so proud of myself. I might have been 8. Was I 8? I might have been 8. But anyways, he was going to taxidermy it for me and put it up on a thing so I could have it. And he took it out of the freezer, and he forgot, and it went bad, and he couldn't taxidermy it anymore. So now I just have a story about that. They keep pointing to her anxiety and the computer searches I didn't and would not recognize. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. What do we got here? The judge who entered the file record. Let's see. There is no guarantee that the PPD, the DA, or the OAG will reopen the case to pursue the victim's killer. Nevertheless, the trial court concluded that the death certificate, as currently written, would devastate any wrongful death action, insurance claim, or any claim against MEO officials for the emotional or financial injuries as a result of alleged misconduct. That's another great question, though. If she did have a life insurance policy on her and they said that she committed suicide, she doesn't get that payout, correct? All right, let's see. What else do we got? To correct the improper exercise of discretion, quote, cannot act. Let's see. All right, so this is about the rest of this. Hold on. Discussion. I want to see if we can get to okay, so here's about another case. All right, I think we might be done with this one. Unbelievable. Yep, we're done with this one. Unbelievable. Anyways. Hi, Joe. So, 43 inches. God damn. Mine was just a fatty. But anyways. Okay, so that was Marlon Osborne and the City of Philadelphia office of the medical examiner versus Josh and Sandra Greenberg. So I don't know if there was, I can check and see if there was an appeal case. Let me see. Helen Greenberg. So also too, because I'm coming down on my last 20 minutes here. I will be live again tomorrow because I'm supposed to go live on Mondays and Wednesdays, but I'll be live again tomorrow. So we'll be able to talk more about this. I'm actually going to leave all of my tabs open so that we can go over more of this tomorrow and see what other atrocities we can find. Let's see. So the review, that's the 32-page report. Let's see. What do we got here? The appeal in the Ellen Greenberg case refers to her family. No, they just want it to be reopened. There's no way a husband would have gotten the life insurance anyway if he's guilty of homicide. That's true. All right. Well, we can start. What is this? Oh, this doesn't help us at all. All right. What is this? Oh, this is the third. Okay. So this is what we're going to go over tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to go over the 32-page report from the medical examiner, Lindsay Simon, who is the chief medical examiner in the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office. I thought this was supposed to be independent and unbiased. So that's what we're going to go over tomorrow. I'll save that so we have time. This case is infuriating for lots of reasons. You know, it's infuriating for a bunch of reasons. And as people who are not law enforcement and as people who are just regular people, we should absolutely be upset about things like this. That people who take an oath to do a job, to investigate, to bring closure to families, they have a job to do. They have an obligation. And for a woman to be stabbed 20 times in her own apartment, whether it's by someone else or it's by herself, she deserved more than maybe 3 hours of an investigation. This case cannot end like this. There are way too many open questions. The DEA has to clear a lot of things up before moving forward, right? Well, we would hope. One would think. One would hope. We can only hope that people would do their jobs, Charlie, but here we are, and people not doing their jobs. This is not the first time we've covered something like this. But anyways, I'm going to go. I'm going to get myself a little snacky snack before I have to be a mother again. You guys are the best. Today was a good day. It was a very relaxing day, but it was a very good day. I feel like we learned a lot. When it comes to this case. I definitely learned way more. I love that I do my long form videos and then we further discuss it. And we just continue to learn about these cases, and you guys are always here and you're always so supportive. And yeah, you guys are amazing. I have the most amazing community on YouTube. And I will see you guys tomorrow, 12 p.m. Central. If you guys are members, see us in the Discord. I'll be here 12. I'm Central Time, so I'll be here 12 p.m. Central tomorrow. But I'm always live Monday and Wednesdays, 12 p.m. Central, if everything goes well. But I have an autistic son, and I have a little baby daughter, and they never go to bed, ever. My son has been up at 1 a.m. for the past 5 days. Last night he woke up at 1 a.m. and I gave him melatonin at 2 a.m. and I was like, go to sleep, and then I had to go to sleep. So, anyways, you guys are the best. Love you, love you, love you. See you in the Discord.